Hello and welcome to this Soul Purpose profile. And my guest today is Lauren and her horse Gia, who's sort of here. And I wanted to go over some of her reading because she had said things that I had never heard before or never thought about before about a soul. So, Lauren, thanks for taking your time to be here and for allowing Gia's reading to be shared. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Okay, first of all, she talked about in the reading, she started out that you guys are the same, that you have a lot in common. Do you relate with what she says? Do you feel like you're both really intensely spiritual and soulfully minded?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It was actually a running joke with me and my old trainer that Gia and I were one and the same, that I was her in human form and she was me in horse form. So I 100% related to that.
Interesting. Yeah, because she kept
Yeah,
saying you're so much alike, and you really both rather stay in your nice little bubble of soulful contemplation and not really come out in the world, but you have work to do.
true.
So had to come out in the world. I actually relate to that too. It's like I'd rather just hibernate and contemplate soulful meaning, but
Yeah,
sadly, it's that's kind of a luxury few people have.
right.
Okay, well, I want to talk about something she said. I've got a screen over here, people. That's why I'm looking over here. Um, Gia said something that I've never really thought about. She talked about um, how that not all souls, well, actually, that a soul comes here complete and whole, but when it enters a human body, it kind of has a different experience. And so she was talking to Lauren in her soul purpose reading, and she says, "Our purpose is not so much to contribute to Earth, but to broaden the perspective of soulful learning. We are observers. This is in relation to bringing stability to the energy of spiritual survival and spiritual impact. A soul is not perfect. A soul carries perfection in its purpose and is complete, but souls living on earth encounter challenges that can be hard to understand and survive. We are here to explore and support this." So basically, she's talking about you guys both, she as a horse and you as a human, being here to observe some of the challenges that the soul within humans and horses have. And I always think that the soul came here perfect and it doesn't need anything and it's only here to teach. But she talks about, and we'll get into this, a soul being here to explore what it's like to be human so that it can have
Mm.
greater understanding of this human experience, which
Yeah,
is brilliant.
it's so profound.
It is
Like
so
I couldn't
profound.
believe I I picked up on like the emotional side of Gia the second I met her. But this statement, I mean, she's like, it's funny because her energy is kind of like young energy, but she has this really deep, like inner being about her, you know? And yeah, it's amazing.
Well, soul purpose readings often take me 4 to 5 hours to do, and hers was so intense, I had to stop not once, but twice and go lie down. Literally, the intensity of trying to find words for what she was saying was overwhelmingly exhausting because I didn't know what she was going to say. And I just, it was just unbelievable on how deep she was and how exhausting it was to try to put that into words. I didn't
Yeah.
si I didn't silence my phone. I better do that.
I
Sorry.
had noticed the same thing on mine. I'm like, I better turn it off.
Yes. Okay, so she says, when a soul comes to Earth, it always comes with purpose, but not in the sense that humans usually expect, which would be me, a soul being perfect and coming here only to enlighten and
Right.
to advance our spiritual understanding and connection. She says, yes, many souls come to bring change and share insight and enlightenment, but sometimes we come together understanding about the human race, which I found this fantastic. I thought they knew everything already. But if you
Yeah.
think that a soul doesn't live here on earth in all this density and challenge, then it makes sense that a soul would be curious about
Sure.
us as humans.
Right. And have more to learn, right? Like
Yes,
more
yeah,
to experience and
yeah,
take on.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
She says, because we're all in this progression together to learn to harmonize soul and human life, the soul must also become a student. News to me, total news to me. As long as a soul remains in the place of intangible energy, it is complete. But when it decides to reside in a physical body, there is much the soul needs to understand. Just totally blew me away. I never looked at a soul from that perspective.
Yeah.
She says this is not so much about learning because the soul has no need for this type of education as it is internally intangible and does not rely on Earth's survival skills. It is more about trying to feel the experience of being human so that the soul can connect with human intellect and form a partnership with it. Brilliant. Absolutely news flash to me. Did you did you ponder this type of soulful experience before this reading, or did she put things into words?
I feel like she put things into words. Like I said, I knew that she was like a really emotional, sensitive mare. I picked up on that immediately with her. Um, she she's so complex. So like those things I picked up on. Um, I mean, she had my last trainer really stumped in ways that she said she had never been stumped before. My current trainer is also, I think, having a really hard time reading her. So I'm glad that I can advocate for her,
Yes,
especially now. And I feel like I
yes.
can advocate for her even better, which is really, really cool. So no, I didn't totally pick up on like the depth of this, but I knew that she was very sensitive
She's very
little
complex.
creature.
That's a
Mhm.
good definition of her. Very complex because
Yeah.
she's here in this earth density in physical form, but she actually lives between the world of trying to understand being in physical form, horse or human,
Hmm.
versus her innate home, which is the land of soul.
Yeah.
I mean, I get that too. I live between the worlds all the time, and I don't like to land on Earth a lot, but it is necessary because I'm human.
Right.
Yeah, this is so amazing. Okay, she says this is a process on Earth now. Many horses are here for this purpose right now, and we partner with humans that are ready to align with the energy needed to accomplish this. She talks about you guys are among the seekers. We seek to find ways to connect the soulful experience with the mental questions and chaos. And the human mind is not familiar with this, nor is it always receptive. Okay, here she says Lauren and I are great teachers within ourselves, but we often struggle with being outside long enough to acclimate to this physical earth.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you also, you got, she, I mean, if you can imagine what her life would have been like with someone who's not soulfully inclined, she would have had incredible struggles. And perhaps she did before you got her.
Well, so I got her right off of the racetrack, and
Oh,
I often wonder what her
oh,
life was like at the racetrack.
she would have had to
Um,
shut down. Yeah.
yeah, because like she didn't have this amazing career at all, but somehow they kept running her. And I don't know if it's because they saw this fire in her. I'd imagine they did, but I also imagine what they actually was seeing was anxiety in her, which in turn translated into like maybe being like fast out of the starting gate or something. Because when I got her a month after she was retired from racing, and
How old was that? How old was she?
she was 4 turning 5.
And her
So she
career
was
is over.
5 in like the racetrack world, but she
Right.
wasn't even technically quite 5 yet. And I could hardly even touch her. She was just, I mean, her muscles were tense. She was, and I'm not implying that, she was abused or anything like that. I think she was just strung out. And I I think her life with me, I mean, it was just very much meant to be. She and I were so meant to have each other. Um, I
Right.
think, my vet even talks about how Gia is so lucky to have me because
Yes.
she is complex, and oftentimes I'm calling my vet and I'm saying, I don't know what's wrong, because I don't know if it's pain related or tack related and she's been wonderful because she looks at Gia as a whole being too. She's not just poking and prodding you know, and it's just really cool because she's like, she's so lucky to have you because like I
Yes.
get it. Like I
Yes.
don't
And
because she is so complex, but I understand that she just needs me to like take a breath for her and just be patient and we'll get there.
well, and you said you were her advocate, which is something that horses actually speak about a lot when I do readings with their humans, because I never know this. I'm not into high level training or anything. I'm a trail rider. I have a friend who teaches dressage. I've had a few lessons from her, just trying to have a better seat.
Yeah,
But so what I hear when the horses talk and I have these conversations is how abusive so many trainers can be, screaming and yelling and making the horse fit into what they know instead of them expanding to suit the horse. So to have an advocate is essential, especially in all horses, but especially in horses like Gia. I mean, I don't know how she survived on the racetrack. However, I have this theory, and I'm going to do a conversation about this, about being placeholders. Sometimes where animals are, they're just a placeholder until they can get to the right home. And this I see a lot. I have a
interesting.
friend that unfortunately has had to be a placeholder for three horses. That's hard. You have them, you try to make it work with you, but in the end they were just waiting to get to their home, and having a
Yeah.
safe place to land until they get to their right human or back to their human is a tough job, but it's necessary. Sometimes being a placeholder is very important,
Yeah, and
and that
I've
may have
had
been
that
what the track
role as
was.
well. hmm
Oh,
Yeah, I mean,
gosh.
I believe that I was a placeholder for a couple horses. And then I think you're right. I think maybe the racetrack was that for Gia, and then she and I finally, found one another.
Right, and it's an important job, but to me it's a tough job. I don't want that job. I have a hard time. Once I get involved, it's so hard to let go. I've been fortunate. I haven't had to rehome things, but for people that do that, it's so essential for the well-being of the other animal. Almost like foster care, being there until you can get adopted, to the
Yeah,
right individual in the right home, the right environment.
yeah.
Okay, she said, experiencing what it is like to be in physical form on Earth is an interesting experience for the soul. And we will do our best to translate what it is to be physical instead of just intangible energy. Being physical, whether horse or human, is to be subject to the thoughts and expectations of those around you. The soul does not experience this. Interesting insight for it made me have compassion on souls because you come here complete and balanced, and then you enter a body in a world that is not complete and balanced. It never, I mean, we talk about people that they have damaged souls, they've been so abused or whatever.
Mm,
But this was a whole different experience of a soul that intentionally came here to learn, and which means it has to lay aside its perfection and its safety as to who
right.
it was. And you see this in Gia.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, she's definitely had to like let her guard down and become very vulnerable, if you will.
Yes, yes. Yeah, to become at risk to living here on Earth and the energies here on Earth.
Yeah. I do believe that it's quite I see that it's very overwhelming for her at times. And like you said, we're
Uh-huh.
so much alike. And it's the same for
Yes,
me, and
yes,
she and I can just get stuck in our bubble where, I go to the barn and I secretly hope nobody's there because so it can just be me and Gia and our quiet time.
yes,
And, we
yes,
have those days and they're great. And I think it's important that we have those days. But she and I both are getting better at adapting to like the busier days and, me stepping in and like letting her know that I'm present. And then she does the same. She actually did that for me yesterday. I went and I was hanging out with her just in her field. And she has another mare that she's in the field with. And that mare is very extroverted, whereas Gia is not. As you know, Gia is
Right.
very
And
introverted.
highly sensitive.
Yes. So it was a bit much. And I finally got the other mare to just leave us alone. And I think Gia really appreciated it because then I walked away. Gia followed me, came over, put her head right here, and almost like with her chin pulled me in. She
Oh,
has never done that before, ever. And I've had her, it was 3 years in March that I've had her. And
wow.
that was so special. And then she yawned about 4 times. And I
Oh,
was like,
nice.
yeah. And it was maybe like 10 minutes. And then she was like, okay. And then she walked away and, she was good. And I was like, that was incredible,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, she's highly sensitive, as probably are you, which is why you came together because you both understand.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, she says the soul does not experience this, so it has not experienced this. Okay, let me go back. Being physical, whether horse or human, is to be subject to the thoughts and expectations of those around you. As human, we are so acclimated to this from the time that we're born. And even when, if our parents or our community, our environment doesn't intentionally do this, we have expectations. They have expectations. And we're so imprinted with that we don't even know when we're reacting or behaving according to expectations versus who we really are. And she brought this to light, which made me step back and look at number one, expectations that I place on my animals, my horses, my dogs, my
Mhm.
friends, expectations that I put on me versus the truth. I mean, there's a big difference between expectations and truth. Some of the expectations may be correct, but so many of them are not. She says, the soul does not experience this, so it has not experienced this kind of pressure. The soul has not experienced, I'm not reading this, the soul has not experienced the pressures of, of expectations. So this is new to the soul itself. Our physical being is conditioned to it, but our souls are not. And I found
Yeah.
that a valuable piece of information to incorporate into our lives.
Hmm.
She says having constant pressure like this causes disruption and flight response in the physical body, making it difficult to remember to utilize the soul as an ally during this daily life. This makes me understand why it's easy to shut off the soul, our soul, and only live in our mental thinking world. It would be so easy to just cut that off and forget that we have a soul that's here to incorporate into this physical thinking being and to use it as an ally. She says, whereas the soul is constantly grounded in its own origins of spirit and can easily bypass the onset of chaotic energy. So the soul energy is eager to understand this physical pressure so it can better support its physical host on this journey to becoming allies. Now, I mean, brilliant. I always say, step over Freud, step over Deepak Chopra. I mean, we have horses now. And the more people that can
Right.
speak to them and write this, we have all the brilliance that we need.
I, well, thank goodness for you, because if I had to try to decipher this on my own, I'd be like, Gia, girlfriend, just dumb it down for me a little, will you?
Literally, I had to take two rests from talking to her because
Yeah.
getting the words from this intensity of wisdom was just beyond my scope of my physical body just being able to go with it and just stay with her
Mhm.
without a break. Yeah, and then when I got away when I said when I was afraid when you were wanting I do a follow-up phone call with every soul purpose reading for people listening. And so when I offered Lauren a call, I was really afraid. When she said, "Yes, I'd love a follow-up," it's like, "Oh." Because if she isn't on this same level with the horse, this is going to be a really bad conversation.
Right. What do
Because
you
I mean,
mean? I don't
yeah,
understand.
I know. And it's like, all I have to do is trust that they've landed together on purpose and
Yeah.
with purpose.
Mhm.
Okay, just speaking of that, before I go any farther, she says that you two have work to do about this. So, like you being the voice or the advocate of soulful experience between horses and humans, do you have any idea how you would do that? Do you know? Do you innately do it? Like in your environment?
I do make it a point, and really just since Gia, to talk about the importance of like speaking up for our horses and meeting them where they're at. And you talked about like expectations. Um, there's old sayings from like some of the masters out there that say, you have to work with the horse in front of you today, and all of that stuff can get so like can seem so blasé, but it's so true. And I feel
It's
like
true.
Gia
Like it or
is,
not, it's true.
it really is. And I feel like
Yes.
Gia is a constant reminder of that for me, and a constant reminder to just kind of leave all the baggage at the door, and I try to relay that to the other ladies at the barn. If somebody talks about, oh, my horse was this today, or they were acting this way today, it's like, well, I don't know, just trying like helping them like think that through a little bit, as opposed
Right.
to like changing the narrative, instead of acting like our horses are like doing something to us. It's
On
more like,
purpose. Yeah,
right, because
on
I don't believe
purpose.
that.
I don't
I
believe it
just
either.
don't.
Right.
I
I don't
think,
either.
they have good days and bad days like we do. Our mares, they cycle, like it all has to be taken into account.
Right. I
So,
heard someone yesterday say that the horse is just being lazy and well, I have Arabians. So I don't think lazy is a word for Arabians. I'm always looking for more slow rather than more go.
right,
But I just don't believe that horses are lazy. I think they might have a day where they're just not physically there or they're wanting to, enjoy the day as it is rather than the agenda. But if someone's always thinking their horse is lazy, this has nothing to do with the physical lazy unless there's a problem physically with the horse. I mean, it's got a metabolic issue or whatever.
agreed.
The horse
Or
is sending a message.
absolutely. And even if it isn't um a message of like pain per se, sometimes I think, and this just came up at a clinic that I was auditing, and he brought up, I don't know if I can like say who it was or not, but he brought up the fact that sometimes when horses are made to do things, made to get into a frame, made to go a certain way, that they feel like their body's been taken advantage of. So they're
Right,
like, no. And eventually they just shut down,
right,
so that
right.
being shut down can be then misconstrued as lazy. And actually, I was just very recently told by a trainer that my horse is lazy. And I wanted to
Oh,
say, and I had to like collect myself because initially Mama Bear kicked in. But in my mind, Gia is not lazy. She's smart.
yeah, yeah,
She's,
yeah.
and she was overworked, for a lot of her life. I mean, heck, she came from the racetrack,
Yeah, she was
so
running it
she's,
too. Yes,
yeah. And it's self-preservation,
yes.
so
And it's
yeah,
also a message to the human. This isn't working. What else do you have to offer me?
exactly.
Instead
Right.
of trainers trying to say, you will fit in this box. Instead, it's like, how can I enlarge from what I don't know based on this horse's behavior, which is not an easy
Absolutely.
job. Trainers have a tough job if they actually are honest and honorable in their job.
Right.
It's
Exactly.
tough. You have to really expand based on what the horse before you is telling you, and it's constant
Right. Well, and I don't envy trainers because, their their job is to produce something,
results.
and
Yes.
if,
Mhm.
right, and oftentimes they're given timelines, and if somebody wants to compete and they bought this horse and they want it to fit into this box of, of this discipline. So I don't envy what they have to do, but I do think more of them have to just say, no, like this is going to take time, instead of like,
Or
sure, I can
different
make this happen in 60 days, or, I
or
think that's
different
absurd.
discipline. Yes,
Right.
different
Right.
discipline. Or just change the whole expectation and see what the horse will offer you. I mean, I hear this, like I said,
Exactly.
I had a run of people that are in hunter jumper, cross country dressage fields, and hearing what the trainers would do was just mind boggling and terrifying.
Yeah, it can
And
be.
how I had one woman who said she finally just learned to stand up for her horse. It's like the horse is above the trainer. The trainer needs to
Mhm.
step it up and get out of the box if the horse is going to fit here. How
Yeah,
good of a trainer can you be, which is not easy. Like I said,
right.
it's constant. This horse is different. I have to create a whole new perspective of how I'm going to utilize what this horse is offering me.
Hmm.
Yeah, not a job I would want either.
Yeah, I've been lucky. I've had a good team around us. But you hear stories and you read things, watch different videos and get on different forums, and yeah, there's all kinds.
The world of training is going to change because people are starting to advocate more for their horse. And they're
Yes.
starting to care more about their horse than they do the ribbons. It'll be evolution, but I see
Yeah.
it changing now. And with cameras everywhere,
Mhm.
the truth is out. And
Right.
so it will change how we relate to horses, no matter what level of competition or education. I'll be glad when
Right.
trainers start looking at it as education instead of training. Training means you
Yes.
already have an end result in mind. Education
Hmm.
just goes on forever. And
Right.
I,
And
I
training,
think
I
this
also
is
think of
starting.
it's more like technique based, as opposed
Right.
to like relationship.
Individual based, yes,
Yeah.
which, like I said, is hard, but at the same time, there's no end to it.
Right.
You can just keep
Hmm.
going on and on. Okay, she says, the soul within us has agreed to cooperate and experience and with the physical experience so that we can translate the many challenges of the physical for soulful understanding and dialogue. And this is where she was talking about what you two are here to teach, but maybe through example. I don't know how she intends for that to be, but definitely it sounds like you're already doing it through example.
Yeah,
She
I'm
says,
trying to. And I also, um, part of me would love to write like a little bit of a memoir.
uh-huh,
And I know you and I spoke of that, how maybe part of my purpose for Gia is like being her scribe, and
yes,
putting these things
yes,
down on paper. And for me, it's almost like allowing myself to take that role on and having the courage to do it because
yes,
I think I would be good at it. And I think it would really honor Gia as well as just so many other horses and their people.
right.
Um, and, maybe it would, I don't know, maybe it would open up some new perspectives.
Yes. Yeah, even if it just takes away one of the barriers or the boundaries in how things always were
Right.
into, but what if they're more like this?
Hmm.
Okay. She says we will begin by opening ourselves fully so we can feel what it is like to rely on the physical. Oh, it's kind of painful for a soul.
Hmm.
Okay, when a being only relies on the physical, they feel at risk. They do not know where to look or where to place their trust. They know they are lacking something, but they do not know where to look. So then they try to think more, think harder, thinking that the thinking will bring them the answer, but it only brings more questions. Boy, don't I know that. Um, the more they think, the more they isolate their feelings and therefore are oblivious to the intelligence within their feelings. Feelings are the bridge between thinking and soul. When the physical is bombarded with thoughts, silence, feelings are silenced. They may be pleading for an audience, but the physical cannot experience feeling while in a mental barrage. Instead, they become a slave to the emotions resulting from the mental frenzy. Horses are such feeling animals, and we know horses think. I mean, we know horses that are more thinking horses than other. But the truth is, they're always going to be primarily a slave to how they feel, their senses.
Right.
And this is something that humans have forgotten. And I hear
Hmm.
this a lot about, I did some readings for a dog and or a couple of dogs, and they talk about the same thing about how when humans return to their feelings, they will realize the wisdom within the feelings. And horses show this all the time. I mean, horses trust their instincts, which is their feelings, how they feel, what they
Right.
take in through their senses.
Right. Yeah, I think it's, you know, so much of the time we're told to not get emotional and not think with our hearts and to be rational and I think there's a place for all of that. And I think there's like a balance to it too. You know, there's a time and a place to gather your emotions and to maybe not be so emotional about something because then it can be skewed, you know, but I think you have to honor that in yourself. And I think it's no different than me honoring that with Gia, you
Right.
know, like she is really sensitive and like it's okay and let's work with that. You know, that was one thing my previous trainer found like a blessing and a curse, she would say with Gia. She said, you know, in the beginning, it's going to be very challenging because she's so sensitive.
Right.
And with me being like green to her, it made it super challenging. And it's still very challenging at times. She said, but you know, once like she understands like what you want and what like whatever the job is going to be or the task at hand, it's going to be that much better because she is so sensitive. So she's going to like
Right.
pick it up, you know? So
Right.
it's a blessing ultimately.
And it's an invitation for us to also become more sensitive.
Right.
Because when we become more sensitive, we start to hear how we've had too much agenda or too many expectations. The more
Exactly.
sensitive we can start to meet them where they are,
Exactly. Hmm.
which is um which is more of a place of connection and communion between us as humans and horses.
Agreed.
It's kind of a common ground when we become more sensitive. And I see people that treat their horses like they have no sensitivity at all.
Mm.
And so sometimes the horses just they go inside and they can't cope. Other
Right.
times the horses just become duller and duller. And so the
Right.
hits get louder and louder. It's like go back to the sensitivity because there's so much information there. There's less effort that needs to be applied on any level when you're with your horse, when you both go back to your senses and honor that sensitivity that we all have. We just override it with our thinking, which she covers
Right.
clearly.
Right.
She says, in humans, this is often called soulful stirrings, something that compels them to slow down the thinking and muse about the unseen. Here is where the soul can make itself known. And now that we have committed to understanding more about this physical process, we have better knowledge to guide and support the physical being, the part, the physical part of being on earth. Here again, the soul just wanting to know and willing to risk itself to experience the bombard of thinking and harshness of being physical so that it can actually understand being human better so that it's a better service to being human, which is the bottom line of your reading with her. Unbelievably wise and kind, very compassionate. For a
Yeah.
soul to leave behind its perfection, to be willing to experience what it's like to be human, because being human can be very difficult with our
Yes.
thinking and the way we're bombarded with life. And so
Right.
for a soul to willingly come in and offer that service is an amazing gift.
It really is. Yeah. Yeah. It really is.
Okay, I don't know. That was mostly what I wanted to cover in your reading. Do you have anything else you want to? Have you noticed any difference in how she is with you, or if she's clearer in her communication, if she's more receptive? Any changes in her since the reading, um, once you have this information in words, per se?
I think having the like validation that she is in fact so sensitive, um, like I already knew I was,
Mhm.
but knowing for a fact that she is the same way and that she and I are in fact like one and the same, it just I think it allowed me to be even that much more patient, and to kind of just like take a breath and let it be, you know, instead of having expectations. You know, like the only expectation I have when I go to the barn is to like enjoy our time together, you know, whatever it is. Um, And I think it's just really opened that up even more to just take each day how it is and whatever mood Gia's in to honor that, whatever mood I'm in, to just roll with it and to just enjoy one another.
Yes, I can see where that would have happened through this reading, even
Yeah.
more.
Yeah.
So
It really like validated it all for me. Cause like I think you picked up on the fact once we talked that like I knew some of this stuff, but I didn't know the intensity of it. I didn't know the depth of it. And so now knowing that, it just makes it that much easier for me to like I said, just accept it all and to roll with it.
well, you had to have been very connected and intuitively aware because otherwise you would have thought the reading was insane because it was so deep
I
on
mean,
this.
yeah, even still, like I have reread it a couple times, and sometimes I'm like, okay, I just like,
You got to go
it's
lay
just,
down.
yeah, it's a lot. And I
A
don't,
lot.
I feel like I understand it a little more and a
Yeah,
little more, but my gosh, the vocabulary on that mare,
I know.
pretty
It
impressive.
and I had to get those words and energy. It was exhausting
Yeah.
and overwhelming, but so amazing. So to summarize the part of the reading that we read, what I really wanted to emphasize is that souls are perfect, but when they agree to come into a human body, some of them agree to experience, to lay aside their perfection and their completeness in order to experience what it's like being in physical form, so that the soul will have more understanding and education on how to help us as physical beings, horses or animals, humans, whatever, which is a brilliant mission for a soul to come with.
I'll say. It's almost
Yeah.
like they're guardian angels in a way. Like they're gonna like hang up their perfect little wings so that they can come down and like get down and dirty with us.
Yes.
So
And
yeah,
experience things that are not pleasant. But once,
right.
I mean, I mean, and we all do this, we give advice to people who haven't done what we're doing or what we haven't done what they're doing. They give advice based on what they see you doing. And you just want to scream, no, that's not how it feels. That's not how it works. But once a soul has experienced that aspect of human, it makes so much sense that it has more understanding so that it can give better guidance if we're willing to partner with our souls on a deeper level.
Right.
Amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel very blessed to have Miss Gia in
Yes.
my life. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And you, because this is really deep, and that's who she is on a deep level. So to have someone who's willing to be there with her on that kind of level is such a gift to her. I'm like,
Well,
I don't know how
and
she coped on the track.
yeah, I don't either. I don't either. And I never doubted that that I was her person. But sometimes, especially in the difficult moments, I doubted maybe how much she liked me, if that makes sense. It's kind of like I'm not a parent to a child, but I'd imagine it's the same struggle sometimes, right? Like there's an
Right.
unconditional love, but there's times where maybe you want to like strangle like
Or
your
where did you come
significant
from?
other, or strangle your child.
What
And
planet are you from?
right. So it also helps me in those moments, where I know that Gia is frustrated, by
Right.
whatever it is that I'm asking her to learn or try. So it's neat that I know that she and I have one another's backs no matter what.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. Which is the reason for being together.
right. Mhm.
Well, that's all I wanted to put into the
Okay.
conversation. If you have anything else you want to add, go ahead. And otherwise, we'll go ahead and wrap it up.
No, I mean, we've covered a lot.
We have covered a lot.
Yeah.
And yeah, we have. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and wind down. And for anyone listening, if you'd like a reading with your horse, my website is True North Equestrians. I have 4 readings. I have an exploratory reading, which is a pre-purchase reading, a soul purpose reading, which is what Gia and Lauren had, which is very deep, and it comes with a whole invitation with practical application, and the horse is still involved in giving you instructions. And you know what? They give a lot of instructions. And then I have a Beyond the Veil reading for horses that have passed over, and a connection reading, which is more of a simple introductory reading. So truenorthequestrians.com. Thanks again for joining me, Lauren. I so appreciate you sharing this information because it is brilliant.
Absolutely. And hopefully it just opens up somebody else's perspective on what they can learn about their horse and their relationship.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.